what is advanced genomic mapping? What is that, and why is it important to our health? Why would somebody want to know that or be tested for that? What is that?
Right. So when we look at a person, right, if you look at yourself, we are made up of our phenotype, which is our physical presentation, right? Height, weight, all your blood work, markers, your physical presentation, biomarkers that you can measure, and so forth. We're made up of our phenotype as well as our genotype. So your genotype is your DNA. Okay. Now, the DNA that we are born with, we carry those variants with us, until we depart from this life. Okay. So, and those variants are in every cell of our body. Okay. The variants that we are born with. And those variants, 50% we get from our mom and 50% we get from our dad. Okay. We get one copy of each chromosome from mom, one copy from dad. Now, we are using next generation sequencing, right, to sequence a person's either exome or genome. And in that, we are looking for any variants or mutations. These would be inherited mutations, okay, that we would be testing for.
Okay.
Now, there are two kinds of mutations. There are the inherited mutations, which you're born with and you die with. Okay. The other type of mutation are acquired mutations. So acquired mutations are exactly that. It's mutations that we acquire during our lifetime based on our environment. Environment is what we're exposed to, in our physical environment, but it also includes our diet, exercise, our thoughts, everything that we're exposed to as a whole. So actually, most conditions, for example, most cancers are, only 10% of cancers are due to inherited mutations. Okay, so approximately 90% of cancers are due to acquired mutations.
So you're saying you're going to look at my genes, and when you find a mutation, it's not something that I'm stuck with. It's something that I developed. And how is this relevant to me? Do I have control over that? Like, once I've got it, right? I mean, what are you going to help me understand? So you look at my genes and you say, okay, this is what you're stuck with. And you said these are inherited. Those are the words you use. Okay, those are my inherited genes. So that's what I got from my mom and dad, and I can't change those.
Right.
But you just said that there's these other genes that what was the word that you used?
Mutations or variants. They're acquired.
Okay. They're acquired genes. Okay, so they're mutations or variants.
Acquired mutations or variants.
Acquired mutations that I personally developed based on my lifestyle, my surroundings, my environment.
Your environment, yes.
Okay. And why would I want to know this?
Right. So we're not testing for acquired mutations. So acquired mutations usually will, for example, if a person has a tumor, okay, and, a biopsy is done, if it's not due to an inherited mutation, that tumor is less likely to spread, for example. That mutation is only found in that mass. It could spread, but originally it's only in that tumor. It's not in every cell in your body.
Okay. So it's less likely to spread. Those were the words you used.
It depends on the type of mutation. Okay. For example, BRCA1 and 2, those are inherited mutations, for example. But what we're doing...
For those that don't know what BRCA1 and 2 are, you're referring to the breast cancer
Yes.
gene? Okay, thank you.
Yes. So what we're doing, and what pretty much most genetic tests that's out there would be testing for, is inherited mutations. Now, depending on the mutation, some mutations are more severe than others. For example, if it is a mutation for a metabolic condition, okay, most metabolic conditions are treatable.
Okay.
Right?
So for our listeners, what is a metabolic condition? I know what it is. I know the answer,
Yes.
but I just know that people are going to be, what does that mean to me? Because what happens with our podcast is we want to break it down so that your average listener can understand what a metabolic condition is. When you say that to me as a health coach, I'm going to look at things like blood glucose. I'm going to look at things like weight. I'm going to look at things like, your blood lipids and things like that.
Yes. Any condition that might be due to inflammation,
Right.
diabetes, even high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. There is a whole that we probably should look up the exact definition of metabolic, but there is a long list of metabolic conditions. But I will give you a personal metabolic condition. Okay. This is our personal story. So my husband, we have a daughter. She's 22 years old now. But after I established my laboratory, I decided that we should sequence our entire genomes, right? We've been meaning to do that. Well, I say we, but it's me. We've been meaning to do that for our family, for the past 10 years. But, I'm busy, everybody's busy, and the time just goes. So finally, in 2021, I said, okay, let's collect our buccal swabs and let's sequence our DNA and see what's there. We are all three perfectly healthy. We, live a very healthy and active lifestyle. Nobody's on any medications. So like everybody else, I was concerned about, mutations for cancer. Mm-hmm. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when she was 33. But she had surgery and so forth. And fortunately, she is still alive and perfectly healthy. She's 81. And none of us, I have 3 sisters. It's 4 girls. We're cancer free, right? We're fine. But still, there's always that worry. In cancers, cardiovascular, heart disease, Alzheimer's, mm-hmm. right? Those are the 3 big ones that people usually worry about. And so you would test mom, dad, and each child. So we did the test, and I was very, very surprised at the results because we did not have any of those mutations for any cancers or heart disease or neurodegeneration. But surprisingly, both myself and my husband had a mutation in the BTD gene. So the gene that's responsible for biotinase, for the metabolism of biotin. All right?
Oh.
Very, very rare condition. It's called biotinase deficiency. So it turns out, and we are not, my husband and I are not related at all. So he is Hungarian born, and I am from Guyana. So of East Indian ancestry. So I was very, very surprised to see that we had the same mutation.
Interesting.
So both copies of his BTD gene were affected. So it means that, he inherited an affected copy from both his mom and dad. It is a condition that is autosomal recessive. So it means that both copies would have to be affected for you to have the condition.
Okay.
Okay. As opposed to autosomal dominant, which is when if you have one affected copy, your risk for that condition increases by a certain percent depending on the mutation that we're looking at, right?
Okay.
So I have only one affected copy. So my husband could only give an affected copy to our daughter. And from me, she could have gotten either an affected or a non-affected. And she got my affected copy. So she has biotinase deficiency. And so does he. And you would think, okay, biotin, it's for hair, skin, and nails. You know, what's the big deal? None of us are bald. Surprisingly, my husband has a full head of hair and he's 62. I still have my hair. So you know, it's a very rare condition. It's metabolic, but and if you look at the over-the-counter vitamins for hair, skin, and nails, or it has 5 micrograms of biotin in it. So people with biotinase deficiency have problems with the metabolism of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins.
Oh.
So it all started to make sense. Especially, you know, my daughter, the complaints that she always had tummy aches but nothing, we did nothing so severe because we were very healthy. And the only thing that they would need to do is have high amounts of biotin every day.
Okay.
So it's 100% highly treatable.
Okay.
Right? So, you know, you may not notice that you have this condition if you are getting a high amount of biotin every day. My husband, he said as far back as he could remember, since he was 7 years old, he had these issues with digestion. And so because of that, as he grew, he was just very, very healthy. We met in college. He was already, you know, no wheat, no sugar, no alcohol, right. Just an exercise. You know, he's very healthy, but he could not eat like regular. He could not, you know, food. He would always have, you know, all kinds of issues. Our daughter, you know, had some issues. We took her to her pediatrician. She would have blood work done. Everything would be normal. Nobody was checking for B vitamins back then, I suppose. We took her to a homeopathic doctor, and it helped. We even took her to an acupuncturist. You know, different things help, but it didn't get to the root cause, right?
Right.
So now that we saw what the issue was, and that's the only mutation my daughter has.
Oh, wow. So this affected her like upset stomach, yes, and yes. How she, and over and over again.
Back, she does have another mutation in the MTHFR gene, but the mild one. You know, there are 2 mutations primarily that we test for in MTHFR. My husband has both. I have one. Our daughter has one. So those are the two mutations. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but yes, that is the primary cause of all her issues. And apparently, so I started researching biotin, right? Biotinase deficiency. It's very rare. How could I have missed that?
Right.
But research is being done now where they're using biotin to treat people with MS. And the study showed that they're given these individuals up to 20,000 micrograms of biotin daily. And some people have regained up to 40% of their muscle function.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So 20,000 micrograms, that's 200 milligrams. It just sounds like a big amount when it's in micrograms, it's 200 milligrams. So I told my husband to, he needs to take biotin every day. So at first he was skeptical. He was like, well, all my issues can't be due to biotin. But maybe not all, but a large percent. Let's just try it. So he started with 20 micrograms. Okay. And I think he called me on the phone. He says, I can't believe it. I feel like when I was young again. I don't know how to explain it. I just feel different. And he was like, I can't believe that, it was just because of biotin. And it's because they are not able to metabolize, certain metabolic pathways in the body require biotin. And so they weren't able to have those functions occur unless they were supplementing or getting biotin from food. So, my daughter started as well, but I looked into it a little bit more as to, is it included in the newborn screening?
Oh, it's a good question.
So newborn screening is, well, you guys will edit this out. It's state run, right? So the panel is not the same in every state.
Yes.
Right? So she was born in New York. And I did go and look it up, and she was born in 2001, and no, the biotinase deficiency was not performed.
Right.
So, but now it is included in, I did not get a comprehensive list, but it's included now, across the board, because it's perfectly treatable. So, my husband said, how come none of the doctors ever thought about doing this test? And it's not that they wouldn't have thought about doing it. It's just not mainstream, right? And then
right.
Insurance wouldn't cover it. It's an expensive test, right? To do a whole sequencing just to look at that gene. It's not expensive, but we wouldn't have known to look at that gene, right?
Right.
I would not have guessed that okay, let's sequence the biotin gene and see what's happening there, right?
Right. You just know that.
Yes.
Exactly. So you've got a child that has symptoms. My stomach hurts. I'm having, different issues. I had the same thing, by the way. My daughter was struggling with some stuff. And what we found out, same thing. My stomach hurts, some disrupted sleep, just different things that just didn't seem, they seemed normal enough. I mean, she was healthy. Yes. She was functioning well in school. She was doing fantastic in everything. So there wasn't these big alarms going off, but there was just often things like, Mommy, I don't feel well. Mommy, my stomach hurts. Mommy, I got a little bit of a headache. And what we discovered is that her ability to methylate B vitamins was huge for her. Same thing. You got on some supplementation with just some basic vitamins. And all of a sudden, you notice these symptoms just dissipate. Yes. And I was kind of on a crusade to say, wow, it's not bad parenting. You haven't been feeding your kids the wrong food. Their sleep pattern is really good. Because as a mother, I know, because my daughter was very young when she started with some of her symptoms. And as a mother, you start to feel like, what did I forget? What am I missing? I have 2 kids. Why is one kid complaining every time, I fix a meal and the other kid is not complaining every time I fix a meal? I fix the same meal for that child. So I remember feeling as a parent this kind of tug of war between what was going on. And like I said, we found out, that she lacks the ability to methylate the B vitamins, and wow, what a difference it made. got her on a methylated B vitamin, no big deal. And it was just a completely different,
Yes.
expression. And so I love that you share your story about your daughter, because we really are confused oftentimes, because it doesn't seem like a crisis, but it's enough to make us go, what's going on here? Shannon, you wanted to add something to that?
Right. So I want to bring it back to the lab, full circle.
Let's do that.
Yes.
So any one of us on screen, out there listening, you have something and you're just not quite getting it. Something is just not clicking, right? So we can go to Longevity Lab and get additional testing done, testing beyond what the average Quest will do, right? And from there, we'll have somebody read it. Now, Dr. Aloma here, I know you are definitely fully capable of reading all of these tests. Do you do that for the customers, or do you give the folks the test to take to their doctors? How does that part work?
Yes. So because of all of these experiences, and even before we tested ourselves, because of what I encountered in the field and in working 30 years in the industry, is one of the main reasons why I've established this laboratory, and to do what we do. So, because, as Shannon and Stephanie says, so we all have had the experience where all our blood work comes back normal, but we know how we feel. So the way it works at Longevity is we have several different panels, and if a person is interested in ordering a particular test, I'm happy to talk to them to determine what test might be the best test to set that baseline for the person, for you.